Okay, ladies, the good news is your dates are here. The bad news is they're dead. And that was the whopper of a tagline that was used for the 1986 horror movie, Night of the Creeps. Indeed, back in the 80s it was chaos at this frat house, as these tiny slug-like creatures start to inhabit human bodies, causing them to turn into zombie-like monsters, and even causing their heads to explode, to the delight of many adoring horror movie fans. A fun splatterfest that pays homage to the 1950s B-monster movies. A fan favourite which features strange aliens, a frozen body, an evil rotten corpse, and Tom Atkins. You know, that guy from Halloween 3? Only this time he doesn't scream at a TV to stop it, but says, "Thrill me." Like, as in a lot.
Thrill me.
So sit back and strap a flamethrower to your back, and get ready to kill some slimy, wormy ass as we explore Night of the Creeps. Yes, that's right. Today is the big one. One of my favourite horror comedy movies of the 1980s, Night of the Creeps. Even the name is stellar. I mean, how could you go wrong with a name like Night of the Creeps? So let's explore this horror masterpiece by looking into 10 amazing facts about this underrated gem. So, let's check out Night of the Creeps.
Good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
Number 10. It's set in the same universe as Monsters Squad. Yes, it is highly probable that both the Monsters Squad and Night of the Creeps are indeed set within the same universe, as they are both fun and have a mix of 1980s cheese mixed in with horror, and both movies are homages to older eras of cinema. Night of the Creeps plays homage to 1950s B movies as mentioned, whereas Monster Squad plays homage to the old Universal monster movies of the 1930s and 40s. Fred Decker, who wrote and directed Night of the Creeps, would even go on to write Monster Squad, which would be released the following year after Night of the Creeps. But what kind of confirms that the two movies live in the shared universe is some graffiti seen in Night of the Creeps, which reads, "Go the Monsters Squad." And given all these creepy crawly alien slug creatures slithering around, this town really could have done with the Monsters Squad. Number 9. Characters are named after horror directors. There are countless amount of characters in Night of the Creeps that all seem to share one big thing in common. They all have the same last name of some of the most famous horror directors of the modern age. Almost as if Decker was paying a loving homage to both his colleagues and heroes, as some of the characters' names include Chris Romero, Cynthia Cronenberg, James Carpenter, also known as J.C. Hooper, Detective Ray Cameron, Detective Landis, Sergeant Raimi, and Mr. Minor. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Why is there no one with the surname of King? I mean, after all, isn't he known as the master of horror? Don't worry, the next year in the Monster Squad, he gets a full t-shirt dedicated to him, with the now famous Stephen King Rules t-shirt. Number 8. Rusty is back. In Night of the Creeps, Jason Lively stars as the main lead, the nerdy kid turned zombie slug creature killer, Chris Romero. However, Lively's most other well-known role was that of playing Rusty Griswold in National Lampoon's Europe Vacation. Yet before he was battling evil alien slugs, he was having to endure a different kind of terror, going around Europe with Chevy Chase. Released in 1985, the scruffy young Lively took over the role of Rusty for the Vacation sequel, taking over from Anthony Michael Hall. And just the next year later, he would go on to star in Night of the Creeps.
thrill me.
Number 7. Dick Miller strikes yet again. Oh, Dick Miller, why is it that you keep coming back to my show these days? Why are you so awesome? It seems that if there was anything crazy going down in the 1980s, Dick Miller was bound to show up sooner or later. As this time around, the grouchy but still lovable Miller plays a police weapons officer. And I love the start of the scene where the Tom Atkins character asks him how he's been.
Yeah, it's me all right, Walt. How's about you?
Hey, can't complain. Cannot complain, Raymond.
Yeah, I can't complain. Apart from getting shot by the Terminator, getting run over by gremlins, and getting electrocuted by the killbots. Yeah, but other than that, can't complain. The scene, of course, famously ends with the Ray Cameron character pointing a shotgun in his face to get a flamethrower. But once again, Miller is cast as Walter Paisley, a character he very first played in A Bucket of Blood in the 1950s, and Miller would go on to be credited as Walter Paisley in future films including Hollywood Boulevard, The Howling, and Chopping Mall, of which, by the way, the director of that movie really likes me. So the big question is, are all these characters the same death-cheating person? Or is it an inside gag that often took place with Miller? Number 6. Original Vision. Night of the Creeps delivers an awesome cocktail that combines 1950s sci-fi homages with modern 80s gore and carnage. However, supposedly the movie was set to be even more of a tribute to the 1950s, as supposedly it was Decca at one stage who had the idea of shooting the movie entirely in black and white, to really get them 1950s monsters vibes kicking in which I got to admit would have been an ambitious idea. But I'm glad it was shot in colour, as if you've got a gore film, sometimes you just need colour to see the extra slashings of carnage. I don't think the gore would have stood out as much if it was in black and white, but instead it was just the start of the movie that was filmed in black and white in a scene that takes place in the 1950s, which is a nice little added touch to that scene and distinguishes the traditions between black and white 1950s to colourful 1980s nicely. Movies, there was a variety of movie posters which came out to help promote the movie. But there were 3 in particular that I want to talk about. First of all, there's this one, which to me kind of looks like a zombie home invasion movie. I just can't help but feel like this poster just looks very similar to the House movie poster. Of which, by the way, Night of the Creeps writer and director Fred Decker wrote the story for House. Then there is this one, which I think is the most well-known one, where we see Chris and Cynthia at the front door of the dorm, armed with a flamethrower and shotgun, fending off the alien slug zombies. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it, and it pretty much sums up what you're going to get. But my favourite one, hands down, is this one, as it just looks so strange and unique, having a blooded dead guy with white eyes peeking out a window, wearing a tuxedo with flowers. It just looks so abnormal and unnerving. And I think with the marketing, they were really trying to push this whole your date is a Walking Dead theme. But seriously, if I ever saw this peeking at my window, I would definitely fill my pants with cake. Number 4. Tom Atkins' personal favourite. In Night of the Creeps, Tom Atkins joyfully plays the no-nonsense cop Ray Cameron, who really has a love for saying "thrill me."
Thrill me.
You can tell Atkins goes all out with the role, and his mixture of tongue-in-cheek and seriousness really goes well with the tone of the film. In other words, his presence just makes the movie that bit more awesome and badass. But sadly, for all of you that thought that Halloween 3 might be his proudest entry in his resume, you're mistaken, as Night of the Creeps is apparently Atkins' personal favourite movie that he himself has starred in. And I guess you can't blame him. He does a top job. Although to me, he'll always be that guy screaming "Stop it" from Halloween 3. You know, I got the feeling this isn't going to be the last we're going to be hearing about Tom Atkins in my show. I think he's going to be turning up again very soon.
Thrill me.
Number 3. Music of the Creeps. According to one web resource, Decca originally wanted Elmer Bernstein to compose the music for Night of the Creeps, but he was unavailable. I think had Bernstein done it, he would have delivered something very creepy and haunting, like what he did for An American Werewolf in London. His score probably would have felt more serious, and no doubt would have been more orchestral. The score instead was a combined effort of Barry Dvorak and Stan Ridgway. Dvorak had previously composed The Warriors, Xanadu, Mr. Mum, and would go on to score Exorcist 3. Stan Ridgway was a band member in a band called The Wall of Voodoo. Number 2. Unofficial sequel. Yeah, that's right, Night of the Creeps managed to score itself an unofficial German sequel, titled Night of the Creeps 2 Zombie Town. In 2007, the direct-to-video sequel follows the tropes of Night of the Creeps, what with the slimy slug-like alien creatures which turn people into the undead, but has no real connection to the first movie, and like Return to Salem's Lot, is more of a sequel in name only. But what about the possibility of Night of the Creeps one day getting a real sequel? Well, Decca has stated that he would only make an official Night of the Creeps sequel if Tom Atkins was on board. Number 1. The movie has become a cult classic despite being a flop. Fred Decker said that the movie didn't do too well when it came out, due to a poor performance at the box office and unfavourable reviews, but attributes its eventual success to people growing up watching it on VHS, gaining a profound love for it over the years. In fact, even in recent years, the powers that be still didn't have faith in the popularity of Night of the Creeps, as it didn't get a DVD release till 2014. But Decker adds that maybe having a long DVD wait has added to the hype. So I guess it just goes to show that a great film doesn't necessarily have to perform well at the box office, and that its success can develop in time. Well guys, that was my creepy crawly look into Night of the Creeps. And once again, it is an underrated masterpiece. If you haven't seen this movie, then for God's sake, go out and see it. You'll love it. There are worse things you could be watching. It's got everything you want or need in your general 1980s gruesome gore fest. It's got evil alien slugs, heads exploding, zombies, and little weird alien creatures. It's a fantastic splattery gore fest of 1980s awesomeness, and I love it. And Night of the Creeps is also a testament that a movie's box office performance doesn't necessarily dictate if a movie is good or not. Anyway, I'm Minty and I'm off to see my date, hence the nice shirt. I just hope that she's not dead. See ya!